Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Peel. The top stories this hour. President Bola Tinubu increases appropriation bill to 54.2 trillion naira. And police in Ebonyi arrest suspect in deadly community attack. Also coming up, normalcy returns to DR Congo as humanitarian ceasefire takes effect. Details coming up now. Welcome again. News Central now at the hour begins in Nigeria's capital, where President Bola Tinubu has increased the proposed 2025 budget from 49.7 trillion naira to 54.2 trillion naira, citing additional revenues generated by key government agencies. He communicated this adjustment in separate letters sent to the Senate and House of Representatives, which were read during plenary on Wednesday by Senate President Godswill Akpabio. According to Tinubu, the increase was driven by 1.4 trillion naira in addition revenue from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, 1.2 trillion naira from the Nigeria Customs Service, and 1.8 trillion naira generated by other government-owned agencies. Following the announcement, Akpabio referred the President's request to the Senate Committee on Appropriation for urgent consideration. He also assured lawmakers that the budget would be finalized and passed before the end of February. Meanwhile, the President also notified the Senate of the termination of the appointments of 3 resident electoral commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission, namely for Adamawa, Sokoto, and Abia.
As stated yesterday, and I'll just read for the benefit of the leader of the Senate, because you have to follow the procedure thereafter. Distinguished Senate President Godswill Akpabio, GCON, requests for votes to terminate the appointments of the suspended resident electoral commissioners of Adamawa, Sokoto, and Abia states. Pursuant to Section 157, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, I hereby request the Senate to consider and vote for the termination of the appointments of suspended resident electoral commissioners of Adamawa, Sokoto, and Abia states. The Senate is invited to note that the 3 resident electoral commissioners have been suspended for misconduct since March 2022, before the advent of the current administration. While I trust that the Senate will consider this request expeditiously, please accept, distinguished senators and distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my highest consideration. Signed, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President, Commander-in-Chief, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The Senate has issued an ultimatum to several top government agencies, warning that failure to appear before the Senate Public Accounts Committee over pending audit queries could result in arrest warrants and potential removal from office. Chairman of the committee, Aliyu Adada, issued the warning while expressing frustration over the continued defiance of key government agencies, including the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, Federal Inland Revenue Service Chairman Zach Adedeji, Nigerian Petroleum, National Petroleum Company Limited, Central Bank of Nigeria, Nigeria Customs Service, and the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Other agencies named include the Nigerian Upstream Petrol Regulatory Commission, the FCT Internal Revenue Service, and Nigeria Communications Satellite Limited. Wadada revealed that some of these agencies have repeatedly ignored invitations to address audit queries raised by the Auditor General for the Federation. And President Bola Tinubu has departed Abuja for Paris, France. The special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, disclosed this in a statement on Wednesday. He said the President's trip to France, is for private purpose, adding that the visit is en route to Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital. The President's spokesman added that Tinubu would arrive in Addis Ababa early next week for the African Union Summit. And police have arrested a suspect linked to the deadly attack on Amigu Akalaha community in Ishielu, Ebonyi State. Spokesperson of the Ebonyi Police Command, SP Joshua Okanda, confirmed that the suspect was apprehended while attempting to flee and has been handed over to the Isiuzo Police Station Division. Commissioner of Police Antonia Uchanya has deployed a tactical team to track down the attackers. During a raid on their hideout, officers recovered 3 locally made guns, a police uniform, jungle boots, and military camouflage. Authorities say investigations are ongoing and urge everyone with relevant information to come forward. Meanwhile, at least 15 bodies have been recovered from the attack site, with several residents still unaccounted for. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arraigned 11 Chinese nationals on charges of cyber fraud, identity theft, and an alleged attempt to undermine Nigeria's constitutional structure. The defendants appeared before the Federal High Court in Lagos on Tuesday, where they pleaded not guilty to the charges. This development comes just a day after the anti-graft agency arraigned 42 Chinese and Filipino nationals for similar offenses before the same court. According to the EFCC, the foreign nationals were apprehended during a raid codenamed Eagle Flush operation conducted on the 19th of December 2024 in Lagos. Following their non-guilty plea, Justice Chukwejeku Aneke ordered their remand at the Ikoyi Correctional Center in Lagos. Now, the International Finance Corporation has collaborated with 5 renewable energy companies to expand mini-grid projects across Nigeria. The initiative, signed at the Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit in Dar es Salaam, aims to provide electricity to at least 400,000 people. The companies involved are part of the World Bank-backed Nigeria DARES program. Nigeria's Finance Minister Wale Edun praised the initiative, describing it as a significant step in tackling energy poverty. With over 85 million Nigerians without access to electricity, the project is expected to enhance the reliability of the power supply and reduce the country's dependence on petrol and diesel generators. Now, to discuss this, we are joined by Nii Duale, an energy expert and founding partner at Duale Ovia and Alex Adedikpe Law Firm. You're welcome. Good to have you here, sir. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
All right. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Now, so what metrics will be used to measure the success of the mini-grid initiative, as it's being called, and how will the impact on 400,000 people be expected to benefit or evaluate them? Or rather, how can it be evaluated?
Okay, so I think the first thing is that in terms of the impact, I think what I'll say to that is that the measures can be looked at from different angles, right? The first thing is that you look at the reliability of the system in terms of how frequent the outages will be based on the power that's been generated. I think another thing about that would be that in terms of the coverage areas of the what kind of population density is it? What area is it? Is it from a commercial or residential or industrial location? And I think also more importantly, from a revenue collection model, I mean, how ingenious or how optimal would that be in terms of how they look at operating costs, the ability to generate enough income to basically defray whatever debt payments the projects, and essentially also looking at how successful the mini-grid projects are in relation to the different communities that are located in. So I think for me, I mean, those are the things that I'll basically look at and say that in terms of success metrics, what can be used to, to look at it. Yeah.
Okay, and how can this initiative contribute to the sustainability of energy supply in Nigeria? That seems to be the bane of every Nigerian, especially considering the past reliance on petrol and diesel generators.
Okay, so I think that in terms of that, first thing is that you look at what exactly do we have in relation to our energy transition plan, right? There's an energy transition plan that basically is premised on providing alternatives to fossil fuel and essentially making sure that the long-term goal for the long-term goal basically is to utilize renewable energy sources. And what are these renewable energy sources? I mean, there are things like solar power, wind, hydro. And then also, I think that for me, what I also look at in terms of identifying or looking at this would be that what are the reliable electricity, the impact of climate change in relation to what we are seeing. I think another thing that we should be looking at would be that in terms of the electricity that is being provided, what interconnection do they have in relation to the grid support? So for me, I would say that there are a lot of things to look at, but I think more importantly is that it would encourage the use of renewable energy and basically ensure that things are, whatever carbon issues that we have in relation to basically is reduced and then also reduce the impact of climate change. So that's how I look at it.
So do you foresee any challenges or risks at all with these mini grids?
Well, as with all things that you have, there would always be challenges, especially with a developing country such as ours. I think that the critical one might be on the basis of insecurity. Others may be on the basis of the economic issues that we have. But again, I think in the last few weeks, we're seeing that the dollar is picking up. So, the Naira is picking up and the dollar is, the conversion rate is a lot better. So I think for me, in terms of the building cost of mini grids, I mean, it reduces that and it creates or provides a shorter period in which payments can be made back to the funding sources. So essentially, the revenue streams are, I mean, if you're going to get maybe funding for maybe 5 or 10 years, basically, in terms if you have a better conversion rate in terms of what the value of our currency is, I mean, it means that the amount you probably will pay back will be paid back quicker. So for me, and maybe the last thing I also say is that in terms of funding sources, I mean, what you find is that the major challenge that we will have is in terms of security. And security meaning that security under a finance package, meaning that when you, the land that you basically utilize in terms of putting in the mini grids, basically want to perfect those things. So those are the kind of things that I see as the challenges and risks.
Not too unsurmountable. So in what ways will local communities be involved in the planning and implementation of these projects?
Okay, so the first thing is that it's important that there's a lot of community engagement. There's a lot of awareness. There's engagement. You engage with whether the community leaders, the local, maybe I'll call the local or traditional rulers, and also in relation to ensuring that whatever land acquisition is to be utilized for the project is, there are ways that you can basically get land cheaper. So basically those things are things that need to be that shows that there has to be proper engagement between the project sponsors and financiers, as well as the local community where the mini grids will be located. And I think more importantly also, what you also find is that when you're doing projects like this, in getting the local residents to show that, oh, you know what, this thing is being done for you guys, it goes a long way in terms of ensuring that the risk that you have in terms of people vandalizing or basically doing any sort of or basically just ensuring that the projects are being protected as
secure.
An issue.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you very much for giving us your expert advice and expert view of the instance here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. All right. Have a nice day.
Thank you. We're on a short break now, and when we return, 17 students dead as blaze in golf school in Kaura-Namoda, Zamfara State. Details of this and more after. Join us then. Welcome back. Now, residents of Bello Street in Ketu local government area, Lagos State, are still grappling with the threat of demolitions allegedly ordered by the community's traditional ruler. As the deductions or other destructions continue, some residents have been forced out of their homes, while others whose fences and burglary proofs have been torn down are now vulnerable to theft and intrusion. News Central's Biola Festus has more.
Crisis in the Ikosi community of Ketu, Lagos State. The air is heavy with uncertainty, and the anguish on residents' faces is unmistakable. No one knows whose home will be next. News Central has been on the ground covering their ordeal, but only a few are willing to speak. Many fear possible repercussions and do not want to fall out of favor with the traditional ruler, the Onikosi, who, according to sources, ordered the demolitions after obtaining a court order.
Yeah, we are appealing to the Kabiyesi to have mercy on people who are on the land, because we are not aware of the dispute that is having with the other party, and not all bought the land from his own family. So he should let peace reign by not demolishing houses.
I want my own house because I'm 70 years. I don't have money. I don't have money again. I have no strength. So he should build my house for me. That's what I want.
Madam Ladoja, a landlord in her 70s, has now lost both her properties, demolished twice in 4 years.
This is the second time the Oba will come and demolish my house. The first one, he told me it was a mistake. He told me that he bought many things. He bought granite, other things, but I didn't see it. But when I said he should build it, he promised to build one out of the two. But he didn't build anything. I managed to build the two. And he came again yesterday to demolish the new one.
Kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀? Wọ́n lọ gba judgment lórí kíni. Wọ́n lọ wọ́n ti win. Ó dà ìwé nǹkan tẹ́ win dà. Àṣàrí wọ́n ní wọ́n ti fi ìwé hàn yẹn, wọ́n kàn bẹ̀ ni pé kéèyàn máa dodge. Kàn mú ìwé tán mú dání. Ẹ jẹ́ ká lọ ṣe photocopy. Wọ́n ní no. Kàn bá wa dá sí ni because ó ti pọ̀ jù. Wọ́n tún ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ báyìí sísìn báyìí sọ̀rọ̀ yìí. Wọ́n tún ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ báyìí. Kàn stop wọn.
According to Section 28 of the Nigerian Land Use Act 2004, only the state and federal governments have the authority to revoke rights of occupancy in the public interest with corresponding compensation to affected landholders. It remains unclear on what legal grounds the Onikosi obtained a court order to demolish homes in the community. Despite personally overseeing the demolition, no one of the Onikosi's family was willing to speak on record. Residents suspect the demolitions are a means for the Onikosi to generate revenue. They are, however, calling for justice. Attempts to reach the Onikosi have been unsuccessful. In Lagos for News Central, I am Biola Festus.
Now, at least 17 students have been confirmed dead following a fire outbreak at an Almajiri school in Kaura-Namoda local government area in Zamfara State. The Almajiri system is a form of Islamic education practice in northern Nigeria. According to Zagazola Makama, a counterinsurgency publication focused on the Lake Chad region, the fire broke out on Tuesday night and raged for nearly 3 hours before being brought under control. Local sources say the blaze was sparked by sticks, known locally as kara, and that emergency responders have since arrived at the scene to provide assistance. And fire got at two petrol-laden tankers at an MRS fueling station along the Newman Road opposite the Jesco fueling station near the Yola International Airport on Tuesday. The road leading into Yola, the state capital, was blocked as curious residents of the area rushed out to catch a glimpse of the inferno, ignoring the inherent danger. 2 fuel tankers have been consumed by the fire as of press time, but men of the fire service have arrived at the scene. Earlier in January 2025, at least 11 persons were killed when a petrol-laden tanker exploded along the Enugu-Onitsha Expressway. The tanker was said to have suffered brake failure, tumbled, and had its contents spilled, erupting in an explosion.
A fuel tanker that was trying to discharge fuel at MRS fueling station. You can see the fire service are here, the Red Cross are here, the civil defense, and all other relevant agencies are here. So far, there is no casualty.
The one thing is this: ideally, we need to comply with safety measures. It's very, very important. Whenever, particularly anything oil industry, we require to comply with extreme safety measures. But ignoring safety measures, there is no way that we can avoid with such occurrence. So they should be auditing their firefighting equipment when due.
The federal government has officially begun tolling operations on the Abuja-Kefia-Kwanga-Lafia-Makurdi Road, that's the corridor, as part of efforts to repay the $460.8 million loan secured from China Exim Bank for the rehabilitation and upgrade of the highway. Motorists using the route will now pay tolls ranging from 500 naira for saloon cars to 1,600 naira for multi-axle vehicles, while police and military vehicles are exempted to facilitate their operations. The toll gates, strategically positioned along the 227.2-kilometer stretch, are divided into 4 sections: Kefia, Kwanga, Lafia, and Makurdi. Speaking at the official launch of tolling operations at the Garaku toll station in Zamfara State, the Minister of Works, David Umahi, reaffirmed the government's commitment to sustainable growth, or rather sustainable road maintenance and infrastructure funding. Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission has tasked civil society organizations in the country to place a spotlight on political party primaries in a bid to end delegate buying and party faithfuls nominate their party's flag bearers. The chairman of the commission made this known as he met with civil society organizations in Abuja as part of the commission's first consultative forum for the year 2025. He urged parties to also focus on ending trends which promote a lack of internal party democracy, affecting elections in the long run.
Reports, as accredited election observers, you have consistently expressed concern over vote buying at polling units during elections. Some of you have made actionable recommendations on how to curtail the menace, which have been favorably considered by the Commission. It is time to cast your net wide by focusing on the incidence of delegate buying by aspirants during primaries.
The challenge that you have thrown to us is a challenge that we will have to approach from a multi-stakeholder perspective. The menace of vote buying, at the general elections, and that perpetuated by the politicians will need the collective effort of not just civil society, but the security agencies and the media. And we will, as we have already started doing, continue to beam searchlights on the activities of politicians, their political parties, and their candidates in any elections.
The eastern part of the country, where taxpayers in Enugu State can now heave a sigh of relief following the establishment of a new law granting Enugu State Inland Revenue Service sole right to collect taxes from them. Governor Peter Mba, on Tuesday, while signing the Enugu State Internal Revenue Service Law 2025, says the exercise marks the end of complaints by the people of several tax collectors in the state and also gives the body the freedom to operate. Speaker of the Enugu State House of Assembly, Uche Naugu Part, says the law will also guarantee ease of doing business in the state.
This is a bill that is designed, first of all, to establish the revenue service of Enugu State as an autonomous institution. So by signing this bill into law, the Enugu State Inland Revenue Service is now able to act as an autonomous institution. So when we talk about the ease of doing business, I recall several times that I've engaged the business community, the organized private sector, the market women. They have always complained about multiple taxation. People coming from everywhere to ask them to pay tax. You have people coming with different kinds of government receipts, demanding taxes from them.
Now, the governor of Plateau State, Caleb Mutfwang, has charged the newly appointed commissioners in the state to join hands in driving the vision of his administration with passion, efficiency, and unwavering commitment to service delivery. The governor was speaking in Jos, the state capital, during the inauguration of 5 new commissioners to replace those he relieved of their positions last week. News Central's Chizoba Nyanwe attended the event and now reports.
It was on the 29th of January that Governor Caleb Mutfwang sent out a shocker to the members of his cabinet and the public by relieving 5 commissioners of their appointments. It is the first time the governor is doing this within the first 20 months of his tenure. In the presence of these stakeholders, Governor Mutfwang swore in and inaugurated these 5 new commissioners, 4 men and 1 woman, who is a former Deputy Speaker of the State House of Assembly.
Your appointment is not a privilege, but a responsibility, a call to serve with diligence, transparency, and accountability. I charge you to channel your wealth of experience and expertise towards the success of our "the time is now" administration. Your role in implementing government policies effectively will be crucial in delivering the dividends of democracy to our people.
The new commissioners, who expressed their readiness to deliver on the job, also state their commitment to the progress of the state.
I will tell the Plateau people that what they have seen or what they saw when I served, more will be added to it, and I'm ready to give them the best of me by the grace of God.
The trust of the people is at stake, and for whatever responsibility that comes with trust, it is incumbent on us and duty-bound for us to do our best to deliver so that his leadership and his vision will be seen in the lives of the people of Plateau State.
A lot of times we read policies on papers and people don't see it happening. And our charge is to actually bring it down to the people so that they can see what the governor is saying and what is actually happening on the ground.
Having received their portfolios, residents of Plateau State are watching with every eagerness to see how diligently and efficiently these new commissioners will approach their assignments in the interest of the state. In Jos, Plateau State, for News Central, I am Chizoba Nyanwe.
Now let's take a break now. Coming up, normalcy returns to DRC following M23 rebels' humanitarian ceasefire. This and more after the short break. Join us again. Welcome back. Now let's take you to South Africa, where the recent decision by former U.S. President Donald Trump to cut funding to South Africa and launch an investigation into its land reform policies has sparked diplomatic firestorms. Trump's claim that the new Expropriation Act constitutes a massive human rights violation against white landowners has drawn sharp criticism from the South African government, which argues that the law is a constitutional mechanism aimed at redressing historical injustices. At the heart of this controversy is a long-standing issue in South Africa, the redistribution of land to address racial disparities entrenched by apartheid-era policies. While proponents of the law see it as a necessary step towards economic justice, opponents, including some South African opposition parties, warn that it could undermine property rights and deter foreign investments. For more on this, a South African policy analyst, Sanusha Naido, joined us earlier. Let's bring you her thought on the matter.
At the base of no, but that's still not necessarily, the clarification of that could be tested in a court of law. It could be under a litigation, and that's what is important to understand, is that everybody is kind of making assumptions and making projections about this where we haven't really tested this law. We haven't really seen what this law is going to do in terms of this expropriation or compensation. In fact, if you look at the reports of the 5th and 6th Parliament in terms of this act, and when it came to be approved, it was approved by the ANC members in the committee in the 6th Parliament. It was not approved by the EFF nor the DA. Both those parties objected to the bill in terms of one in the context of what expropriation means, and the other in the context of the idea that expropriation without compensation will actually continue to further dispossess people who who illegitimately had their land taken away from them. Now, the question here is the public interest clause in the bill. Now, what the public interest clause is whether or not a land will be expropriated in the public interest if it is for indeed things like building infrastructure that is in the national interest. Here we'll have to see whether it gets tested around this compensation issue, because at the moment nobody actually knows what the compensation will look like unless we test it or unless it goes under litigation and there is a test case law around jurisprudence that tells us that this law may need to be reversed or not reversed but redefined in the context of compensation. So right now we don't know, and everybody's just looking at it and talking about it rhetorically.
Now, some shops are reopening in the eastern DR Congo city of Goma after the Rwandan-backed armed group M23 announced the humanitarian ceasefire. The ceasefire comes just days before a planned crisis meeting between the Congolese and Rwandan leaders amid tensions that have destabilized the region for decades. Last week, M23 and Rwandan forces seized Goma, the provincial capital of North Kivu, a mineral-rich region long plagued by violence from multiple armed groups. Although fighting has stopped in the city, home to more than a million people, clashes have spread to the neighboring province of South Kivu, raising fears of an M23 push towards its capital, Bukavu. While no fighting was reported on Tuesday, military and local sources say all sides continue to send reinforcements and equipment into the region. Sudan's paramilitaries have shelled one of the last functioning hospitals in Omdurman, killing 5 people as violence escalates across the war-ravaged nation. A medical source at Al-Noor Hospital, speaking anonymously for safety reasons, said volunteers were among those killed. The ongoing conflict, already responsible for tens of thousands of deaths and the displacement of more than 12 million people, has worsened in several weeks as the army pushes to reclaim central Sudan and parts of the capital. While the rapid support forces have withdrawn from much of Al-Jazeera state, they have launched repeated attacks on Khartoum, killing dozens of civilians. Still ahead, U.S. President Trump's proposal on Gaza Strip ownership faces immediate backlash. Details after the break. Join us again. Welcome again. President Donald Trump has proposed that the United States take long-term ownership of the Gaza Strip, suggesting it could bring stability to the Middle East and create thousands of jobs. During a White House press conference, Trump expressed confidence that U.S. control over Gaza and the relocation of Palestinians to other countries would have a positive impact on the region. He claims that the idea was well received by those he had consulted, although it has sparked significant controversy and concerns internationally. Among other critics who have raised concerns about the implications of such an action and questioned its feasibility. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan strongly condemned the proposal, labeling it unacceptable and inappropriate. The idea of U.S. ownership of Gaza remains a contentious issue both within political and international circles.
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent. I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
So to discuss this, we are joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen. Afia, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Can you please give us a bit more detail on what was said at the press conference by Trump and Netanyahu yesterday?
Yes, well, there was quite a lot said, and mostly it was about the Gaza Strip. So he said there that he had a detailed plan to own Gaza. The United States would own that piece of land. They will be responsible for dismantling it and dismantling all the dangerous unexploded bombs in the area and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for people in the area. When he was asked about the Palestinians that are in Gaza at the moment, he implied that they're only there because they have nowhere else to go. He said repeatedly that he has asked Egypt and Jordan to take in the Palestinians. They have rejected that proposal. And of course, we know that forcing the Palestinians out of their land is against international law. So it's not even known if that is feasible. He was asked if the US will send troops to the region. He said, we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs. It will be something the Middle East can be proud of. And he said to do that, we will do what is necessary. So we could see troops there. He was also asked about the two-state solution, something that he seemingly supported in 2020. Basically, that would see Israeli people have some parts of the land and Palestinians have some parts of the land. He said, well, a lot of plans change with time. And he said they never had a chance because the Gaza Strip has been a hellhole for people living there. It's been horrible. So he didn't really give his voice to that two-state solution where he has done in the past.
What has been the reaction to Trump's comments on Gaza since so far, especially regarding that ownership bit? Was there any talk of how the U.S. could own it? Or is it a purchase or a lease, or what exactly?
Well, when we come to the reaction, let me take that first. I've been looking at lots of things on social media, lots of Palestinian people basically saying that Trump should go to hell and that this will never happen. This is not something that they support, and they cannot fathom this idea. Now, Saudi Arabia as well have come out and said that it's in a clear and explicit manner that it does not allow any interpretation under any circumstances of the Palestinian homeland. Jordan and Egypt have previously rejected suggestions that people in Gaza should be relocated as well. Now, Palestinian groups have come out and said that this idea would result in expulsion from their land. It would result in expulsion of Palestinian people from our land. They have said our homeland is our homeland. But Israeli far-right groups and sympathizers have praised Trump and said that this is the only solution. Now, Ben-Gvir, a prominent right-wing person in the Israeli government, has been touting this idea for 20 years, that the Palestinian land belongs to the Israelis and they are the only people who should be there. And he has fully supported this idea. But there's also fears that this could turn more Palestinian people towards Hamas and could actually undermine the peace process that is going on at the moment. We're supposed to be in the second stage of negotiations for the extension of the ceasefire. This particular ceasefire that we are in only lasts for about another 30 days. This could very much undermine those negotiations that are going on.
So, Afia, how possible is it that the U.S. could take over Gaza in the way that Trump has described?
Well, you asked about American ownership. It's against international law for a country to just walk into another country and say, we own it. Trump is not talking about a piece of real estate in New Jersey or Ohio and turning that into, a waterfront property, because he's eyeing Gaza, or he's coming across like he's eyeing Gaza as prime real estate as opposed to some people's land. And what he's talking about amounts to ethnic cleansing. Let's just be very clear, that's what it amounts to. So actually, all this that he's saying throws up more questions than answers. How are you going to force the Palestinian people to leave? Would that be through US troops? Are you bringing in troops from other countries? Are Western allies going to get involved in that as well? Well, actually, a lot of them, including the United Kingdom, still are holding out for that two-state solution. And let's remember as well that Gaza isn't America's land to take over or give to anybody else. It just isn't. So Trump has to, first of all, realize that. And so perhaps he is just saying this as a way to ask other countries or force other countries' hands, whether that's Saudi Arabia, whether that's the United Arab Emirates, whether that's anybody else in the Middle Eastern region, to come up with a better idea from this pretty crazy one that he has.
Well, Afia, I want to say thank you very much. Always very interesting talking to you about these international issues. Thank you. Moving on now, the Philippines House of Representatives has voted to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte following a series of allegations against her. The vote sets the stage for a Senate trial where 2/3 of Senate must support her removal from office. The impeachment stems from complaints, filed in December accusing Duterte of misusing millions in public funds and allegedly plotting the assassination of President Ferdinand Marcos. The motion passed with 215 votes in favor, marking a significant moment in the country's political landscape. Duterte's fate now lies with the Senate. While a trial date has not been set, the decision comes just days before the midterm election campaign, a crucial period expected to shape the 2028 presidential race.
Direct the Secretary General to immediately endorse to the Senate the impeachment complaint, having been filed by more than 1/3 of the membership of the House, or a total of 215 members. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. The Secretary General is so directed. The session is suspended.
The total number of House members who verified and swore before me this impeachment complaint is 215.
Business now, the Nigerian equities market presents both exciting opportunities and unique challenges for investors. To maximize returns and mitigate risks, a well-structured investment portfolio is crucial. This discussion will explore key strategies for optimizing investment portfolios within the Nigerian equities market, considering factors such as risk tolerance, investment goals, and market dynamics. Chinazam Uzora, senior investment broker, Parthian Securities, joined us on Business Edge to explain the risks involved in this form of wealth creation.
It's very important because when you're building a portfolio, when you're investing generally, your objectives, your risk tolerance, and your tenor, like timeline you want to hold that security, is very important for choosing what is an appropriate investment for you. So investors with trading objectives, and we see this especially with young people that have a lot of risk tolerance. You want short-term gains, so you want to buy and sell and make a profit. It's a good strategy for people with little capital that want to grow their capital.
And now sports. Nigeria table tennis icon Aruna Quadri has been knocked out of the men's singles at the Singapore Smash 2025 after failing 3-1 in the second round to Brazil's Hugo Calderano. The Brazilian had to rally from a 1-0 deficit to secure his win with scores of 8-11, 11-8, 11-9 and 11-6, advancing to the third round. This victory gives Calderano a 3-1 lead in their last 4 encounters. In the women's singles, Egyptian Hannah Goda was eliminated by China's Man Kuei in the second round. Despite matching her opponent in power and skill, Goda ultimately fell 3-1. The Egyptian contingent, including Omar Assar, Youssef Abdelaziz, Mohamed El Bayeli, Dina Mashref, and Mariam Al-Hodabi, also faced early exits, failing to progress beyond the first round of the $1.5 million tournament. Aruna, however, remains optimistic and is looking forward to completing the WTT Championship in China next month. For now, his focus is on defending his title at the 2025 Africa Cup in Tunisia later this month. And that's all this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories we brought your way. President Bola Tinubu has increased the 2025 appropriation bill to 54.2 trillion naira. And police in Ebonyi arrest suspect in deadly community attack. We also told you that normalcy has returned to DR Congo as humanitarian ceasefire takes effect. Do remember you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.